Now time for us to hear from our distinguished Chief Guest, Lieutenant General Khalid Kidwai. General Kidwai has led a meritorious military service spanning over 55 years. He has held a variety of prestigious command, staff, and instructional appointments and is a graduate of Pakistan's Command and Staff College, National Defense University, and the U.S. Army Field Artillery School, Fortsville, Oklahoma. After the May 1998 nuclear test, Lieutenant General Kidwai pioneered the establishment of Pakistan's National Command Authority and was appointed as the founding Director General of Strategic Plans Division in December 1998. He served as DG-SPD for over 15 years and since 2014 is an advisor to the National Command Authority. As DG-SPD, the General conceived, articulated and executed Pakistan's nuclear policy and deterrence doctrines and translated these doctrines into a robust nuclear force structure. He also oversaw and ensured the establishment of the Army, Navy, and Air Force Strategic Force Commands, including the development and operationalization of a variety of nuclear weapons. The General put in place state-of-the-art command and control systems as well as an effective nuclear security regime for Pakistan's strategic assets. He is also the architect of Pakistan's Civilian Nuclear Energy Vision 2050. In recognition of his devotion to duty, strategic vision, and outstanding leadership of Pakistan's nuclear and space program, Lieutenant General Kidwai has been awarded Pakistan's highest civil award, Nishan-e-Imtiaz, the second highest civil award, Hilal-e-Imtiaz, and in addition to Hilal-e-Imtiaz military. Let us warmly welcome our honorable guest to the stage for his invaluable remarks.
Thank you very much, Janraza and Ma'am Tanzila. I frankly didn't realize I had done so. Evolution of Pakistan's full spectrum deterrence policy is a subject given to me. Ambassador Raza, Ambassador Ijaz Chaudhry, ladies and gentlemen, I think I'm greatly honored to have been invited by the President IPRI to deliver a talk on Pakistan's nuclear policy of full spectrum deterrence as part of IPRI's distinguished lecture series. The topic is well chosen because these three apparently simple words, full, spectrum, and deterrence, three words, they encapsulate within the fold of each one of these three apparently simple words the entire gamut or cornerstone of Pakistan's national security policy. It is important to understand what the policy stands for, its deep meaning as to which dimensions these three words encapsulate, the evolutionary background, of course, the strategic effects, I think most important, the strategic effects that the policy generates in South Asia, with India, in the region, perhaps in the world, how the policy has influenced peace, security, and strategic stability in South Asia, and much more. At the outset, I can state with professional satisfaction that focused work at the Strategic Plans Division, the SPD, and by Pakistan's scientific strategic organizations for over 2.5 decades now, has transformed Pakistan's nuclear capability. On the 28th and 30th May 1998, Pakistan's brilliant and legendary scientists and engineers conducted 6 hot tests of Pakistan's different nuclear devices. These scientific experiments were not only successful but also restored the strategic balance in South Asia. Pakistan proudly became the 7th nuclear weapons power in the world, and this occasion of the 26th Youm-e-Takbeer is being commemorated today. Thereafter, with the establishment of the Strategic Plans Division 99, we embarked upon the journey of transforming the scientific experiments into a potent and robust operationalized triad capability as it stands today on the 28th of May 2024. The operationalized instruments of the nuclear capability are held in strength on the inventories of the fully trained and operational strategic forces, that the Army Strategic Force Command, which is called ASFC, the Air Force Strategic Command, the AFSC, and the Naval Strategic Force Command, the NSFC. Within the larger institutional command and control structure of the National Command Authority, the NCA, and the Strategic Plans Division, the SPD. The nuclear capabilities of the ASFC, AFSC, and the NSFC are coordinated by the SPD as one unified strategic deterrence force. The three strategic forces comprising Pakistan's nuclear triad complement and synergize their respective capabilities to create strategic effects of deterrence against aggression. These capabilities are conceived, funded, and developed under the policy of full spectrum deterrence, and as such, there is harmony, synergy, and integration between the three strategic forces in employment and targeting strategies. In the last 2 decades plus, therefore, the strategic effects thus generated by Pakistan's robust and operationalized nuclear capability in South Asia, whereas India's relative conventional asymmetry include at the strategic level, political and strategic policy constraints, as well as at the military level, severely curtail operational options for the Indian military as an instrument of political policy. This strategic state in South Asia translates into a sustainable strategic balance, which in turn translates into enforced peace, howsoever fragile it may seem. Pakistan's nuclear capability, articulated unapologetically through the policy of full spectrum deterrence, which I shall explain later, has progressively over time created strategic dilemmas and strategic rethink in India in the past few decades. The Indian military and strategic planners feel handicapped by the rapid nuclear posture transformation in Pakistan. The effects have been generated on India's cold start doctrine or proactive operations to a point that some of the latest threat jargon coming out of India in the form of a dynamic response strategy or DRS based on the hackneyed strategic strikes formula further reflects the limits and constraints imposed by Pakistan's nuclear capability on the Indian strategic and operational options. In political terms, as I said earlier, Pakistan's robust nuclear capability acts as an instrument of peace enforcement in South Asia, notwithstanding the misguided, almost pathetic political rhetoric coming out from time to time from India's highest rungs of political leadership, like Prime Minister Narendra Modi, the Defence Minister Rajnath Singh, and the Foreign Minister Jaishankar now being the latest to join the chorus. I think these should be treated as just that is misguided, pathetic political rhetoric which lacks hardcore military logic to back up the fiery words and their implied threats. This, in a sense, is the strategic effect that Pakistan's operationalized nuclear capability has generated in South Asia, and more on this later. We know that since independence, Pakistan has faced a security threat from India, which has remained the primary focus of our threat perception. The unresolved Kashmir dispute, the dismemberment of Pakistan in 1971, and soon thereafter the first Indian nuclear test Pokhara in 1974, cumulatively left Pakistan's security severely exposed. When we talk of the evolution of Pakistan's nuclear program, we must not forget that had it not been for the visionary leadership of the time, which decided that Pakistan must develop nuclear weapons at all costs, and by all the subsequent national politico-military leadership, irrespective of the politics of the day, it is not difficult to imagine what India and the world would have done to a non-nuclear Pakistan, especially in the hostile international environment prevailing ever since 9/11, all the way to the present-day international scenario. Today, Palestine and Kashmir, including the abject helplessness of the Arab and Muslim world, and yesterday, Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya and Iraq and Syria, all non-nuclear states, provide hard lessons in this context. We must also never forget the mindsets and on-record threats of India's leaders like Khalid Kidwai, Narendra Modi, Rajnath Singh, Jaishankar, Ajit Doval, Sushma Swaraj, the BJP, and the Shiv Sena goons. All of them have openly advocated the Indian strategic objective of taking Azad Kashmir and Gilgit-Baltistan so as to have borders and connectivity with Afghanistan, reduce Pakistan to a vassal state, and disarm it. While there must be no doubt that what stands between our adversary and national calamity is Pakistan's robust nuclear capability, but built around the policy of full spectrum deterrence, I think the latest irresponsible outburst by India's Foreign Minister Jaishankar that India should not be deterred by Pakistan nuclear weapons while planning to take Azad Kashmir and Gilgit-Baltistan, it's a class in itself, in self-delusion, lacking in the fundamental understanding of the theory of nuclear deterrence, especially when Pakistan does not adhere to the policy of no first use. I'll repeat for emphasis that Pakistan does not adhere to the policy of no first use. It is disappointing coming from an otherwise well-reputed career Foreign Service professional officer with a pedigree. But then that's perhaps the wave of irrational Hindutva arrogance overriding professional wisdom for you. We can never thank Allah Almighty and Pakistan's pioneering leadership enough. Lately, if any further examples were needed, there are lessons to be taken home from the plight of Ukraine, which in a moment of strategic insanity disarmed itself of its nuclear weapons voluntarily and naively accepted meaningless security guarantees of foreign powers. Such are the national security consequences of being non-nuclear. In the strategic and technical evolutionary process, it has taken over 5 decades of vision, planning, scientific excellence, astute strategic management, and selfless patriotism to have brought Pakistan today to a stage where no power can challenge our sovereignty and integrity through kinetic aggression. In the last 2 decades particularly, Pakistan's nuclear program has been labeled as the fastest growing in the world and acknowledged for its quality as being ahead of India. I think we wear that badge with pride and offer no apologies because it secures Pakistan from external aggression. The nuclear tests of May 98, when India and Pakistan went overtly nuclear, brought new implications for the management and development of our nuclear capability. While establishing a strategic balance in the region and sufficiently neutralizing India's conventional abilities to wage war, the event is a watershed in the evolution of nuclear development cycle. Pakistan nuclear project, I think, can be neatly divided into 2 clear eras. One, the period from 1972 to May 1998, spanning 26 years, which saw the right political decisions being taken across a unified political spectrum, irrespective of the personalities or governments in power, breathtaking scientific milestones and breakthroughs being achieved, and super diplomacy providing a diplomatic cover and shielding the national nuclear effort from external harm. The second nuclear era of Pakistan's nuclear project commenced from the post-1998 test period and can be counted till as of today, spanning the next 26 years. The threads of the nuclear project were picked up by the SPD seamlessly from the end of the first era, when the scientists validated Pakistan's nuclear capability through nuclear tests. The work in this second era was carried forward through the stages of conceiving, developing, and securing Pakistan's nuclear capability by converting it into a robust, comprehensive, operationalized capability based on a variety of nuclear weapons and their integration through a professionally conceived C4I2SR. I hope people understand. The 4 C's are for command, control, computers, and communications. The 2 I's are for information intelligence and surveillance and reconnaissance. Eight segments within one little acronym. As a consequence, Pakistan's nuclear deterrence capabilities today are based on a well-balanced triad of strategic forces based on land, air, and sea-based capabilities which deter aggression comprehensively. These operate under the umbrella of a strong command and control system under the National Command Authority and the SPD and are articulated through the policy of full spectrum deterrence. I'll now briefly dwell upon the articulation and implications of Pakistan's policy of full spectrum deterrence and how it keeps India's aggressive design in check. Immediately on establishment of the NCA and SPD in early 1999, the policy of credible minimum deterrence was adopted as being pragmatic and dynamic. Again, these 3 words, credible, minimum, deterrence, reflected the conservative operational and developmental policy objectives, especially keeping view threat assessment of the time. The early strategic force goals emanated from this assessment. In the ensuing decade, however, from the year 2000 to 2011, operational and force development policies of our adversary remained dynamic and continued to develop on an ominous trajectory, thereby affecting the dynamics of strategic balance. Pakistan was therefore compelled to keep the policy of credible minimum deterrence dynamic as well. Since then, With the development of a variety of ballistic missiles, the tactical nuclear weapon Nasser, together with a family of highly accurate low-flying cruise missiles, Babur and Raad, for a variety of land, air, sea, and undersea platforms, the long-range Shaheen 3, thank you, with a range of 2,750 kilometers, the Ababil with a multiple independently targeting re-entry vehicle MIRV capability. By 2011, the entire spectrum of nuclear weapons was covered horizontally and vertically. India's vast eastern and southern geographical dimensions were therefore fully covered. Today, Alhamdulillah, Pakistan's full spectrum deterrence capability, while generally remaining within the larger philosophy of credible minimum deterrence, comprises horizontally of a robust trial services inventory of a variety of nuclear weapons, a triad, if you may. It is held on land with the ASFC, at sea with the NSFC, and in the air by the AFSC. Vertically, the nuclear spectrum encapsulates progressively increasing destructive weapon yields and range coverage at three tiers: strategic, operational, and tactical, all the way to 2750 kilometers, so as to cover India's vast eastern and southern geographical dimensions, including its outlying territories. Cumulatively, there is an awesome amount of deterrent nuclear power available to the NCA SPD. It enables Pakistan to effectively deter aggression through smart deterrence strategies in the first and second strike modes. The capabilities enhance Pakistan's response options, both for peacetime and pre-war deterrence, and if ever deterrence is challenged by the adversary, for intra-war deterrence. The development strategies were designed to enable a powerful full-spectrum deterrence, and on that it has delivered. We can also conclude from the formidable nuclear inventories of both India and Pakistan as to why the balance of terror brings into play the larger concept of mutually assured destruction, or MAD, in any potential conflict leading to mutual deterrence, which in turn compels antagonists to hold their peace. Specifically, the policy of full spectrum deterrence implies some of the following. That Pakistan possesses the full spectrum of nuclear weapons in three categories: strategic, operational, and tactical, with full range coverage of the large Indian landmass and its outlying territories. There is no place for India's strategic weapons to hide. That Pakistan possesses a full range of weapons yield coverage and the numbers strongly secured to deter the adversary's policy of massive retaliation. Pakistan's counter-massive retaliation and therefore will be as severe if not more. And thirdly, that Pakistan retains the liberty of choosing from a full spectrum of targets in what I call a target-rich India, notwithstanding the Indian BND or the Russian S-400, to include counter-value, counter-force, and battlefield targets. By developing full-spectrum deterrence capability, we have reinforced deterrence at all levels, re-restored the disturbed strategic balance, thereby ensuring that peace will prevail. Cold start doctrine or proactive operations have been checked, and therefore my preference to call Pakistan's strategic weapons, especially the tactical nuclear weapons, as weapons of peace. I'll just briefly describe to you a case in the form of a case study, the Balakot-Rajouri skirmish, February 2019, to bring out certain points regarding the full spectrum deterrence. In the Balakot-Rajouri skirmish in February 2019, India attempted airstrikes on alleged terror camps in Balakot, Pakistan, and gave these the political label of surgical strikes. Pakistan, especially the Pakistan Air Force, struck back in force and humiliated India. We know that story well by now. In the future, I would not be surprised if India, while stage managing another false flag operation, combines airstrikes with limited land operations across the line of control. It would be a signature Modi act of reckless politics. Such an adventure will, of course, be fully retaliated by Pakistan's conventional forces under the policy of quid pro quo plus. However, such operations are likely to remain confined to Kashmir because Pakistan's full spectrum deterrence nuclear capability deters India from undertaking large-scale air or land operations elsewhere. Such are the dynamics of deterrence that ensure strategic stability in South Asia. The reality of nuclear deterrence is that in February 2019, India, Pakistan, and the international community remained cognizant of South Asia's nuclear capabilities, and each actor consciously prevented events from moving to a point where nuclear weapons may come into play. It is that ultimate scenario that India and Pakistan avoided by moving cautiously, rung by rung, on the escalatory ladder in the conventional domain, retaining the possibility of stepping back at each rung without losing face. On the first escalatory rung, India, though strategically reckless, was tactically cautious of limiting the stay of its LOC violating aircraft and then dropping the payload without much care for accuracy. The political objective was to show to the Indian electorate, basically, and to Pakistan, that India could undertake conventional airstrikes against mainland Pakistan and in the process draw electoral benefits of the BJP. Political spin and falsifying facts through media hype took care of these strategic effects, though the operations were tactical. Surely what dictated the Indian caution in the conduct of a conventional force strike was the consideration that escalation could spiral out of control, leading to a possible nuclear confrontation on the ultimate rung, that is, to deterrence through the full spectrum deterrence. Similarly, when Pakistan retaliated on the second rung of the escalatory ladder the next day, the air operations in the conventional domain were crafted with much care and precision so as to serve as warning shots only, avoiding collateral damage. The resultant success in the ensuing air battle was a bonus to Pakistan because the Indian Air Force fighters took the PF's bait, and of course, Abhinandan got his fantastic trophy. Here again, one can argue that Pakistan's confidence in retaliating strongly in the conventional domain was born out of the comfort of a nuclear full-spectrum deterrence at its back, and caution because of the awareness that the third rung on the conventional forces escalatory ladder must not come into play from India, which did not, and the skirmish fizzled out with better self-prevailing. Besides these two step-by-step conventional operations by India and Pakistan, the third actor, that is the international community, was also influenced by the nuclear capabilities of India and Pakistan, including full-spectrum deterrence and the tactical nuclear weapons. It decided to intervene even though it had earlier signaled to India to go ahead with its initial strike at Balakot. However, immediately after taking stock of the situation after Pakistan's quid pro quo plus response at Rajouri, and in order to prevent further escalation to the third and fourth rungs in the conventional domain, and eventually perhaps to the ultimate nuclear rung, the international actors too decided to intervene. The conclusion to be drawn is that Pakistan's full spectrum deterrence is alive and effective. It generates the strategic deterrence effects for which it was conceived, that is, deterrence against all-out war. Full spectrum deterrence generates deterrence effects literally on a daily and hourly basis in deterring a major war. In the Balakot-Rajouri skirmish, as explained, the full spectrum deterrence was effective as a robust capability lurking in the background, imposing caution and restraint on the indiscriminate employment of conventional forces on both actors, India and Pakistan, as well as the compelling soft international intervention. Please remember that Pakistan's nuclear capability and the policy of full spectrum deterrence were never designed to deter isolated tactical operations, nor can they, and therefore we will have to learn to live with tactical operations on the line of control with fluctuating intensities, but we can be certain that full spectrum deterrence will not allow events to get dangerously out of hand. A critical ingredient for retention of strategic stability is that Pakistan has ensured seamless integration between nuclear strategy and military strategy in order to achieve the desired outcomes in the realms of peacetime deterrence, pre-war deterrence, and in intra-war deterrence. If the adversary, having drawn the wrong conclusions, challenges the very foundations of this deterrence theory. There are decision makers in India who have drawn dangerously flawed conclusions about what they refer to as Pakistan nuclear bluff. It would be a serious professional folly to consider that a single conventional airstrike, and that too conducted most unprofessionally, would render Pakistan's robust nuclear deterrence a bluff. As demonstrated during the February standoff, the ground reality is that Pakistan's nuclear weapons compelled India's political and military leaders to craft a politico-military strategy taking into consideration Pakistan's real-time nuclear capability. While developing conventional operation plans, the Indian planners make deliberate effort to try and skirt around Pakistani nuclear capability and nuclear thresholds. It is precisely the presence of these nuclear weapons that deters, and in this specific case deterred, India from expanding operations beyond a single unsuccessful airstrike. That India backed off from proceeding further on 20th February 2019, despite rhetorical threats by Modi, is a testimony to not only the humiliation it had suffered at the hands of the Pakistan Air Force a day earlier, but also the cold calculation that nuclear weapons could come into play sooner rather than later. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is nuclear deterrence at work and not a nuclear bluff. Pakistan displayed restraint and maturity as a nuclear power in diffusing the Indian-generated tensions, thereby preventing South Asia from spiraling into potential catastrophes. It will be foolhardy for India to take Pakistan's restraint and maturity as a weakness and continue to test the limits of strategic stability. Before I end, I would like to place before you a South Asian chronological politico-military perspective of the last 5 decades since the 1980s in support of the conclusions that I have drawn regarding the gradual rendering as irrelevant of India's strong conventional forces in the war-fighting paradigm of South Asia. I have talked about it in a few forums lately, and I would like to present this perspective here too in order to drive home the point that I am making. When we juxtapose the strategic effects of Pakistan's nuclear capability as it has developed over the years, we can discern a pattern of effects that have been generated in each decade ever since on India's political choices with Pakistan, as well as resultantly on the massive Indian military machine and its options of offensive operations against Pakistan. First, we can discern that during these 3 or 4 decades, India's political approach to Pakistan has undergone a sea change because of the ground reality of a nuclear Pakistan. India's politicians have had to gradually reconcile to the futility of attempting to coerce Pakistan through direct strategies. India has therefore adopted indirect strategies like hybrid warfare and fifth generation warfare to hurt Pakistan internally and on the western borders, which I think is a deflective reaction to Pakistan's nuclear capability, having deterred the possibility of major operations on our eastern borders. That Pakistan is finding a degree of incohesion and imbalance in responding effectively to the indirect Indian strategies ought to be a matter of serious concern to Pakistan's politico-military leadership. Second, because of Pakistan's robust nuclear capability, India's military doctrines have been compelled, and I repeat for emphasis, India's military doctrines have been compelled over the last 4 decades to grudgingly but gradually adjust to the ground reality of Pakistani full spectrum deterrence capability, visible quite clearly over the horizon in support of and at the back of its strong conventional forces, duly integrated into Pakistan's deterrence and security strategies. India's conventional war-fighting military doctrine therefore started to get real and have transited and regressed in terms of curtailment of politico-military objectives in terms of time and space, scale of war, notions of victory, war-fighting doctrines, and tactics, etc. Examples in a chronological order. From General K. Sundarji's gung-ho, mechanized, mobilize and hit doctrine, based on blitzkrieg tactics and laid out ever so cleverly in 1986-87 in the deserts of Rajasthan under the cover of the infamous exercise Brass Tacks, with the strategic objective of cutting or severing Pakistan's vital north-south lines of communications. 2. General V.P. Malik's and General Padmanabh Khan's limited war while remaining within Pakistan's nuclear thresholds as in the failed Operation Parakram of 2001 and 2002. Note, limited war and not an ambitious deep blitzkrieg penetration inside Pakistan as conceived earlier by General K. Sundarji. Next, to the lukewarm and reluctant partial military mobilization of the Indian military subsequent to the Mumbai attacks of 2008. This was neither here nor there. To the stillborn cold start doctrine, which effectively got neutralized with the first test of Pakistan's Nasr missile as a tactical nuclear weapon in 2011, besides a series of smart operational responses by Pakistan in the conventional domain. To the pathetic spectre of the late General Bipin Rawat's fake strategic strike of 2016, which remains a mystery till today, and finally reduced to the humiliation of the IES Balakot strategic strike of 26 February 2019, which was anything but, and the resultant IAF losses when the PF struck back in full force the next day through Operation Swift Retort. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was a neat and surgical demonstration of Pakistan's retaliatory policy of quid pro quo plus in the conventional domain. And now in 2024, 5 years in the last Indian humiliation, we have again started to hear murmurs about a dynamic response strategy or a DRS being crafted by the Indian military planners based essentially on the hackneyed strategic strikes formula at the tactical level across the line of control or even the international borders. Dynamic response strategy is clearly a reflection of the limits and constraints imposed by Pakistan's robust nuclear capability on India's strategic and operational options. That about sums up the net effect on India's gradually eroded military options inside 4 decades. From the high point of the 86-87 blitzkrieg-like plans to cut Pakistan into half, to today's low point of limited strategic strikes and nothing more is some climb down. When seen against the reality of the gradual erosion and regression of India's political-military options in the real world of today's South Asian strategic balance, to me it sounds comical and a bit exotic to hear India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the Defence Minister Rajnath Singh threatening that Pakistan will chase infiltrators inside Pakistani territory, and for the born-again Hindutva Foreign Minister Jaishankar to say that Pakistan's nuclear capability should be ignored while planning to take Azad Kashmir and Gilgit-Baltistan. Such statements at the highest political levels can only fall in the category of political rhetoric and bluster, born out of the frustration of seeing one of the world's largest militaries that stands deterred because of Pakistan's robust nuclear capability. They forget the fantastic tea that was served to Abhinandan the last time the Indians came chasing terrorists inside Pakistan. That does not, however, mean that the threat should not be taken seriously by Pakistan's conventional forces. One can see quite clearly that Pakistan's inventory of a variety of nuclear weapons across the entire spectrum of the deterrence paradigm, from strategic to operational to tactical, has strengthened Pakistan's hand enormously and allowed Pakistan to transit the policy of full spectrum deterrence, creating strategic and operational dilemmas for the adversary. I would like to conclude by recalling that nearly 80 years of geopolitical and military history post World War II reinforces the universal wisdom that nuclear powers do not fight direct wars. I do not see any reason why India and Pakistan would want to defy that logic and risk mutually assured destruction of the worst kind. The illogical logic of MAD is as relevant to South Asia as it is to Europe and across the Atlantic. Pakistan does not have a no first use policy. I might repeat that Pakistan does not have a no first use policy. The Indian gung-ho leadership may like to think about it. There should never be a doubt in anyone's mind, friend or foe, that Pakistan's operationally ready nuclear capability enables every Pakistani leader the liberty, the dignity and the courage to look straight into the Indian eye and never blink. I thank you, ladies and gentlemen.